Today we're going to be talking about temperature, specifically Celsius and Fahrenheit temperatures. So we can also measure temperature in terms of Kelvin, but we're only going to look at Celsius and Fahrenheit. So let's think about temperature. Where do we measure temperature? We think about the weather, right? So we have Celsius, the temperature in Celsius, and the temperature in Fahrenheit, and it changes from one country to another. So the United States measures temperature in Fahrenheit. You'll go outside and it'll say it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In Europe, they measure it in Celsius. So if you go to Italy, let's say, they may say that the temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. What else do we measure in terms of temperature? We think about oven temperature when we cook. That's really important. We use temperature to measure whether or not we have fevers. Even in terms of medication, right? We think about when you get a new medication, it tells you what temperature to store it at, whether it's room temperature or whether it has to be refrigerated, and it gives you an exact measurement. So there are lots of reasons why we need to be familiar with temperature, and we have to be able to understand both Celsius and Fahrenheit because we might be in different areas of the world. So let's talk about some of the basic differences. First of all, Celsius. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and it boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Whereas Fahrenheit, water will freeze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and it'll boil at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Celsius sort of came into being because of this water freezing and boiling. It was these nice even temperatures, 0 degrees and 100 degrees. If you have a fever, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit is the typical human body temperature, whereas 37 degrees Celsius would be the typical human body temperature. So if you have a fever, you might have a 101 degree fever, whereas in Celsius, that would be 38.6 degrees Celsius. So you can kind of see the differences between Celsius and Fahrenheit. So let's do some converting because that's going to come up certainly. Okay, so let's talk about how you can go from one to the other. So Celsius, let's start with going from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, so degrees Celsius. Let's write this down. I'm going to keep Celsius in red and Fahrenheit in blue just so that you can easily differentiate between them when I'm writing. So degrees Celsius. The conversion formula is the degrees in Fahrenheit minus 32 times 5/9. And let's actually put this Fahrenheit in blue. Again, the only purpose is just so that you can easily differentiate between the Celsius and the Fahrenheit. Okay, and let's go backwards. Okay, let's figure out what we have to do in order to find the degrees Fahrenheit. In order to find the degrees Celsius, if you know Fahrenheit. Okay, so I'm going to substitute Celsius with C, and Fahrenheit, you see I already substituted with F. And let's do a little bit of algebra just so that you can see how we reach the conversion, and then we'll do some actual examples. Okay, so if C is equal to F minus 32 times 5/9. So algebraically, what we want to do is we want to get rid of this fraction first, this 5/9. I'm sorry, I'm going to put that back in red. Again, just to prevent some confusion here. Okay, algebraically, we want to get rid of the fraction first. So in order to get rid of the fraction, we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So to get rid of 5/9, we can multiply by 9/5. And we'll do that on both sides. So the 9 will cancel, the 5 will cancel on that side. And then we wind up with 9/5 times c. Okay, so what that gives us, this is just a two-step process, is now 9/5 times c is equal to f minus 32. So we're going to put in the f here. And then all we have to do is add 32 to both sides. And what that does is it gets the f all by itself. So the 32 cancels on this side. Then we're adding 32 on this side. And what we get is 9/5 c plus 32 is equal to f. And what this is saying is that if we're given a temperature in Celsius, now we can figure out what it is in Fahrenheit. So let's just write that down over here. So the temperature in Fahrenheit is just (9/5) times c plus 32. Okay, so now we have our two formulas, so let's just apply it. Okay, let's do some conversion. So let's start with going from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, so I'm going to give you a temperature in Fahrenheit, and we will figure out what that temperature is in Celsius. And we'll just do a couple of examples and then we'll go backwards. Okay, so let's say that you are given 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and we want to know what that is in Celsius. So notice here that the way that we write it is, if we're talking about temperatures in Fahrenheit, we use the little degree sign, which is like an O. And then we put an F next to it so that we know that we're working in Fahrenheit. Okay, so we know the formula for Celsius. It's F minus 32 times 5/9. So for 90 degrees, the degrees in Celsius is equal to 90 minus 32 times 5/9. Okay, so 90 minus 32 is 58. So now we have 58 times 5/9. And we can multiply the 58 and the 5 together, and that gives us 290. So now we have 290 divided by 9, and what this gives us is 32.2. So 90 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 32.2 degrees Celsius. Let's do another one. One more. Let's do 67 degrees Fahrenheit. So once again, Celsius is equal to 67 minus 32. So notice it's the degrees in Fahrenheit minus 32, okay? Because we're in the process of solving, notice I haven't put in units. You can do that as long as you're really sure to put in your units at the end, right? And this is why it's so important, because if we just put 90, we wouldn't know whether we were talking about Fahrenheit or Celsius. So make sure that if you leave out your units in your work, you put it in at the end. So 67 minus 32 times 5 over 9. 67 minus 32 is 35, so we have 35 times 5 over 9. And we can do the 35 times 5, okay? And 35 times 5 is 175. So 175 over 9 gives us 19.4. So what does this mean? It means that 67 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to 19.4 degrees Celsius. And you could see how different it is, right? Imagine if you're looking at the weather and it says that it's 67 degrees. Now 67 degrees Fahrenheit is a beautiful day, but if you read it as 19.4 degrees and you thought it was Fahrenheit, you would think it was freezing, okay? So you really do need to pay attention to which units you're in. Okay, let's go from Celsius to Fahrenheit. We'll do a couple of examples there. So this time we're going to give you a temperature in Celsius and we're going to convert it to Fahrenheit. Okay. So let's say that we have 21 degrees Celsius. So we're going to go back to our formula, and if you remember, if you're given a temperature in Celsius, you do 9/5 times the degree that you're given in Celsius plus 32. So we're going to do, so Fahrenheit is equal to 9/5 times 21 plus 32. So 21 times 9 is 189. So we have 189 over 5 plus 32. 189 over 5 is 37.8. So 37.8 plus 32 gives us 69.8 degrees. So what that tells us is 21 degrees Celsius is equal to 69.8 degrees Fahrenheit. These are equivalent temperatures, just in different units. Okay. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do 32 degrees Celsius. So in Fahrenheit, we're going to do 9/5 times 32. Times 32. Plus 32. So this first 32 here is from the temperature, okay? That's what that 32 is. And then the plus 32 is from the formula. So this gives us 288 over 5. The 288 comes from the 9 times 32. And then plus 32. This gives us 57.6 plus 32, or 89.6. So what does this tell us? 32 degrees Celsius is equal to 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's it. So now you know how to convert between temperatures.